AI needs HI to make it happen. AI and HI, neither of them can function without MI. And maybe the way that we've thought about transformations in the past, which is we do organizational design and we have our structures and we have our team sizes, and then we have a digital roadmap that that team is going to use, maybe that's not the way. Maybe we think about the digital roadmap determining our organizational design. And to explore this, I'm delighted to invite Lance Younger of procuretech to actually ask the question, well, what if we take tech, digital, and data and think about how that might drive our transformation? The floor is yours.
Brilliant.
Bravo.
Thanks very much, Richard. Thank you. So great to see you again, all. Just a few words and a bit of background. My name is Lance Younger, I run procuretech, but over the last 20 years plus, I've been involved in digital and organizational transformation. I've been lucky enough to be on both sides of the house, basically, well, all sides of the house. I was a CPO at Goldman Sachs post the financial crisis, so that was rebuilding a third-party risk management team and the procurement team. I've run Ariba's consulting team across Europe, basically implementing Ariba. I've also implemented Oracle and many of the other solutions as well. The key thing throughout the last couple of decades has basically been the rapid emergence of digital and our understanding of how that impacts procurement to deliver a number of different values, to shape the organization and transform us as we're going forward. I'm going to spend the next 25 minutes, half an hour, talking about that transformation journey, the key elements that sit within it. And yes, there'll be a lean towards digital. Part of what procuretech does is we work with corporates to help them identify digital solutions and then scale. But we also work with digital solutions to help them scale, because those two elements are critical for growth across the board. Now, the funny thing is, the Deloitte survey that just got put up just beforehand, I basically designed that survey, so I know the priorities and the metrics behind it. We run a similar survey. We look to understand the priorities of individuals, the priorities of this room. We always get basically an oscillation between risk and cost as we go through different phases over the years. But what's happened over the last couple of years, obviously total cost of ownership is raised, but also some of the softer things here around business agility, decision-making, and transparency as well. What often disappoints me is sustainability, which tends to bump up and down at the bottom as well. But these are priorities that drive your business. And whatever they might be, they're critical for you to understand because they give you a point of differentiation. And that becomes important when you go on a journey of transformation, because yes, you can do the basics well, but what differentiates you as a business are the things that you do differently. That's different for a financial services company based in the UK versus a manufacturer based in the States as well. From our unique purview, we're able to see a number of different trends that are happening to disrupt the market. And over the last 3 to 5 years, there's been a significant amount of movement from a transformation perspective. A couple of key things that have happened is that there's been a huge influx of best-of-breed solutions, probably over the last 5 to 10 years in reality. And that's meant there's been an equilibrium or more balance of demand and supply. You can now ask for a digital solution, and it's there, it exists. And if it's not there and it doesn't exist, then you can quite easily look to build, as a few people in the room kind of talked to me about last night are doing. So that balance is quite important. The other thing that's evolved is this best of all. So yes, you have a backbone of Ariba or Oracle or your ERP system, but you then layer on top of that best-of-breed solutions that drive capability, but also data and intelligence. Important to combine them all into one ecosystem as well. And then finally, this blending of talent and basic technology. And that happens in a couple of different places. Often what you'll find when a startup or digital solution is starting, as Cirtuo did a long time ago, it starts as a consultancy or a people-based business, starts to integrate technology, and then rapidly moves into being digital first, going through that evolution. That's a lot of how organizations grew in the past for digital solutions. And what we're seeing now is some organizations starting Gen AI first, not just AI first, but Gen AI first in terms of digital solution evolution. Then during 2022, we saw quite a pickup in two areas. Basically, first of all, was supplier experience management. Going beyond, and so we've been doing supplier management and procurement for a few decades now, but this was about the experience, about the digital experience of your suppliers. How many times do you ask that when you're doing a digital procurement assessment or you're looking to improve your journey? It's rare. Typically, people look internally at the business user, not looking at the supplier journey through things. And that goes way beyond procurement. It goes into supply chain, and it goes into new product development. And that's a journey which is critical if you're looking, as Sam talked about yesterday, about understanding the total cost of ownership as well. So it becomes important to enable that process as well as you're going through your digitalization journey, and it's part of your transformation as well. The second thing here is an appreciation from procurement that the transformation is beyond just buying the next new app. Unfortunately, in a lot of instances, people are attracted to the shiny new app. Whereas in reality, what you need to be considering is the full stack, from interface to your app layer, to your data layer, all the way through to the architecture that sits below that. If you don't get the architecture right, so S/4HANA and ERP systems right, then fundamentally the rest can be, well, it won't fail, but you need to accommodate that and with the knowledge that the speed that is moving at and the strategic directions that are being taken as well. So looking at all the way through from interface all the way through to database. And then the last couple of big trends that have hit us over the last couple of years are decision intelligence. And this goes straight to the heart of understanding the data that we've been gathering. Again, over the last couple of decades, organizations have been looking to gather data together, whether it be the basics around spend, through to basically more complex information around carbon footprint or delivery times or quality times as well. And bringing that all together and looking to layer that up. So you aggregate your data, you visualize it, so everybody's an expert now in Power BI and BizClick, but then you create some decision intelligence. And this is critical to feed into a closed loop process where you've got decision intelligence, and from that recommends an action which feeds your process and your workflow and gives you an opportunity to follow up on things. The second big area that we're seeing, and there's a combination here, is Gen AI and process orchestration. We work with organizations like Bayer, Roche, Jaguar Land Rover. Every organization we know is either adding to or starting basically an orchestration journey. Adding process orchestration, data orchestration to their journey, to act as a layer and often as a capability to augment the procurement process. It's a different set of architecture, but it also results in a fundamentally different experience as well. And I call out Gen AI here because basically with this technology and approach, a lot of organizations are embedding Gen AI into the process orchestration process to aid and accelerate the process. As well. And we're seeing that in the same way across all of the different digital solutions as well. So 8 big trends, probably a few more in there, that are driving what we're doing going forward and basically shaping what we're doing from a transformation perspective. I want to talk a little bit about the actual landscape as well. But before I do that, actually, no, I'll explain this chart and then I'll do it as well. So every year, we have a number of live databases of all the digital solutions that exist in the marketplace. It's dynamic and it's moving as well. But every year we get together and basically assess the overall market. Now, it's an independent process. We do it in conjunction with Eloise and the Carney team. We do it data-driven, so we take our own logic as well. And then we basically, from that, we basically take a number of different data sets from, law cases, patents submitted, size of team, shape of team, revenue, funding raised, etc. And it gives us a database that enables us to basically rationalize these 4,000 plus solutions into about 180, 200. And those 180 to 200 are reviewed by a set of industry experts, about 50 to 60. Actually, last year it was slightly over the 60 mark, who basically know and work with these solutions day in, day out, or they know the business problems. And from that, we create the 100. Now, it's not everybody's 100. Your solutions that you go for will be slightly different, but the fundamental thing is these are pioneers across four key areas. They're high growth, high customer satisfaction, high innovation, high social impact. And basically they're driving and shaping what we're doing across the organization. Now, we didn't plan this. It wasn't on the invite list. You must be on the chart. But I was really excited when all of a sudden I saw Samali and Val, who are kind of sitting together there. And then I saw the, I'm going to look to see where you are. Anyway, I saw the Archlet team here as well. Because they're on the chart. And it's actually a representation, and Cirtuo on there, of these ecosystems that are evolving as well. Now, I'm going to talk to a couple of these different areas here because they're shaping and driving the transformation that we're seeing as well. And then I'll deep dive into a couple of different areas. So first of all, on the top left-hand side, I talked about orchestration and basic strategy and performance. And we're seeing a number of different solutions in this area. Obviously, Cirtuo, been there for a long period of time. One of the original category makers, as we call it, from a technology perspective, defining and leading in that particular area as well. And then double down on customer satisfaction as well, which is quite a nice double win for you there, which is quite important. And then you've got a lot of process orchestration solutions on here as well. And they come in two different forms. You've got the generic solutions that basically cover enterprise orchestration. They're like the Pegas and the Appians of this world as well. But what we've seen in procurement in particular is basically a number of different solutions that have emerged rapidly over the last 2 to 3 years, like Oro, like Zip, like Tokian. And why have they basically emerged so quickly? Because they've focused on procurement. They know the procurement objects, they know the supplier objectives, objects, and they know the data flows, and they're able to map them, create them, know the use cases, and basically deliver faster for you, both in terms of the implementations and how they structure the implementations, but also in terms of driving the outcome as well. So kind of hold that thought, about your use case, your priorities, and why they're kind of excelling at what they're doing in this particular space as well. On the far left-hand side here, you see analytics, data, and intelligence. And this can be either very, very deep around a specific use case, like Zenita, who basically specialize in logistics and basic benchmarks, but how they work, interesting enough, with Kielvar and others to basically augment the sourcing and the sourcing optimization process. Again, around a specific use case, a differentiated point. Going back to this point, yes, create yourself a backbone solution, but have solutions on top of that that drive and respond to your particular areas of growth as well. Sourcing and cost management on the left-hand side. Again, going beyond just a standard RFP and RFQ module into giving you additional functionality. Now, that might be deep in one particular area, as Archlet does, giving you additional basic steps, additional negotiation processes, enabling you to access more savings across multiple different areas, through to specialist solutions. We saw an explosion over the last 3 to 4 years of basic SaaS procurement solutions as well. They went from 0 to like 200 people overnight. Largely, it was basically a BPO play, but then they introduced technology rapidly. So many of these solutions are continuing to grow based upon that as well. Now, I always worry when I put the chart up and when I come after Eloise, because Contract and legal management is not going to be on the chart probably next year, but maybe it's not that severe. We'll talk about that. But we have seen something similar happen, which is the commoditization of this space. So basically, it was quite mature and heavily commoditized, a lot of solutions that do the same sort of thing. But now we're seeing a disaggregation driven by AI, and a few niche solutions come into the market here, like DSilo, that specialize in a particular area around that as well. I'm going to touch upon risk and sustainability in a minute, and I'll just come back to source-to-pay and B2B marketplaces. B2B marketplaces first. Often what procurement forgets about is the fact that a B2B marketplace is buy-side, sell-side. So the buy-side is what we do for a living. And so a lot of these marketplaces give you access to that. And if you're a big organization looking to be involved in chemicals or raw materials, then you should be using a marketplace, because that's where you're going to get the optimal return, and where you're going to get the optimum return from an investment perspective. So the last area I'll cover is source to pay. And I always get asked the question, where's Cooper? Where's Ariba? And I go back to the reason why we went through the process is to identify organizations that are innovating super fast, are growing super fast, are basically got customer satisfaction that's off the scale, and basically have got a massive social impact as well. And it's all relative as well. So what we find with the organizations on this chart, they're moving faster, and they're basically making the change happen, whereas Ariba and Cooper were on last year, so they maybe might be on next year, but they got acquired, as you know, so slowing down a little bit. But yeah, and these solutions that are on here tend to specialize as well in a particular area of the supply chain. So looking at complex problems and solving the S2P process in building and building materials, for example, where nothing existed in the past and it exists now as well. So that's the landscape. It's evolving quite quickly. I want to do a double click on risk management and sustainable procurement, because there's a few different dynamics happening here as well. We talk quite a bit about platforms and managing platforms, and often there's a debate about where risk sits within the end-to-end ecosystem. Fundamentally, yes, procurement needs to be aware of it, procurement needs to be part of it, but we're seeing a shift towards more of a platform approach, where effectively, yes, you have a core platform, but then you bolt onto it niche or specific risk domains or data domains as well. And that's how you manage that, depending on the type of organization you are. Again, a financial services organization is going to lean more heavily towards InfoSec and those particular areas, as opposed to manufacturing, where it's going to be deeper through the supply chain as well. And so again, you end up with a mini ecosystem that's evolving. And different players in here are moving at different paces into the center, or deciding to stay exactly where they are around the different areas. Now, again, we did this piece of research towards the tail end of last year with the Kearney team to identify, and there was about 90 different solutions we looked at, and some of them are moving as well. Craft, you'll notice on there, basically has moved from being a supplier intelligence platform to moving more into the risk space. And you see organizations as well basically acquiring others. This is a particular buoyant area for big acquisitions, adding on different capabilities. Exeter recently purchased a company that specializes in the software supply chain, just the software supply chain. And then you see the domains on the right-hand side where, yeah, there's a lean towards cybersecurity, in that being a common and consistent capability versus some of the others as well. Sustainability. Hot off the press, released yesterday, so for your eyes only, unless you were up late last night when we released it as well. Over 260 different solutions. Now, this is a representation of the challenge. Again, Eloise and I have quite a bit of a laugh and interchange about, well, tell me what sustainability is. Because if it's just reporting and dashboarding, then it's not really shifting the needle. And that's the challenge we've got in the sustainability space at the minute, is that it's taken a couple of years for you, for the business, to define what sustainability means for you, to get the funding, to line the people up, and then to think about it again before you define what the problem statement is, that the digital solutions that can then respond to. And in the meantime, you've got a significant number of digital solutions that have spun up. They've said, there's a need, there's a problem, and they've spun up. And what we'll see in this space over the next couple of years is many of these solutions will either disappear, they'll be acquired at a faster rate than the others, or they'll just always be basically a niche solution at a certain size. And by the way, that's all right. It's not always about being a unicorn. You can make a significant change just looking at, basically slavery or trade rights or in a particular area. And there's many organizations that are happy with that as well. So, we've heard it before, transformation is happening faster than ever. Digitalization is happening faster than ever. But what's the implication for us as a function? We've effectively gone through, in my mind, a few different eras. If you go back to the 90s, then we had SAP, Ariba, and then we had Oracle and a few other solutions as well. They gave us the screenshot, which Eloise showed us earlier on, and that's evolved over a period of time at a pace. And I think we've all, as an industry, accepted the fact that it's a good backbone moving at a certain pace, but it's never going to be at the cutting edge, at the leading edge. And that's why they built their ecosystem. That's why Cooper's built their ecosystem, so they connect into other solutions, or they've got part ownership in other solutions that can help them to grow. We saw Cooper, Ivalua, basically emerge, go through a flurry of kind of acquisitions on the Cooper side to build out their capability. We've seen best of breed come through, and now we're in the AI era. We're genuinely seeing solutions being developed which are Gen AI first, and we're going to see this hockey stick. Now the question is, how steep is the curve? Because it will be steep. And for many of you will know, we're heading towards some form of singularity. Some form of singularity. So just think about that for a minute as well. And it's going to be driven by personalization, user experience, innovation, orchestration, and continued innovation. So we end up with a modern procurement stack that effectively enables organizations, acts as a catalyst for organizations. And the reason why that's important is this is procurement talent. This is procurement talent. And we talked about this yesterday briefly, is whichever way you view it, capacity or capability, it's not going to shift. It's not going to shift. Unless you're building a new organization, or you're adding a significant new capability to what you're doing in terms of adding a risk function to it, or bringing in sustainability, it's not going to shift. The challenge within that is the element of that which is digital. And when I did this, I think I've been a bit generous, if I'm honest. I think the amount of digital talent in there is actually a lot narrower than that as well, is even less. Now, for me, the thing that's critical here is it becomes less about the technology and it becomes more about digitalizing the talent, because the talent will basically enable us to have a multiplier effect and to be able to use the technology and the digital and the data we're using as well. And I see basically scaling technologies as a catalyst, basically, so we have to drive that forward. It's one of the reasons, I set up procuretech, because fundamentally, without digitalization, we can't achieve our ambition. We can't. There's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many people. Without digitalization, we can't do it. So, I'd like you to all stand up. Right, they all stand up. We're all standing. Okay, we have a choice. We have a choice. So a few of you may have heard about singularity or not, but effectively it's a point in time, very simply, where machines take over from men. Now, depending on what you read, you know, there's Sam from, you know, OpenAI was on the previous chart that you put up there as well. It's at different points in time, okay? And there's a couple of different theories that say it's anywhere between 2030 and 2045, where we hit this intersect as well. Now, you've got a choice. You can either wait and let it happen to you, in which case I'd suggest you can sit down. Anybody just going to wait? Okay, you're all still standing, which is great, which leads me on to the next slide, which is basically, it is going to be about the talent in this room, the people in this room that are going to make those changes. So you can sit down now. You answered the question, which is great, that we're all interested in being leaders of that change and creating action in that change. Another little bit of research we did, and you know, it was a bit of a dream result for us. And because if you'd wanted to talk about some of the key and important things that come back in the research, these are the things. Was that number one in terms of importance, and it wasn't just any level of importance, it was very important and extremely important to advance digitalization. What the key enablers was leadership. It was the people in this room leading by example and basically driving that transformation so that we don't stand still and sleepwalk into a situation, we actively drive it as well. Other elements within this from a talent perspective were effective change management, collaborative learning, and also importantly working with suppliers from a collaborative perspective as well. But then second to that was having a strategy. You know, having a plan for what you do. Having a roadmap for what you do. You talked about business strategy, category strategy. We talk about digital strategy. If you don't have a plan or a vision for where you're going, then you can't do anything about it. You can't work through the backlog. You can't drive that change. And that should all be decision-driven as well. To enable this to happen, you know, I'd love to be able to say, you know, digital is the single most impactful thing in terms of progress. Now that is my mantra. That is my mantra. But I think it's got to be more than that. I think it's got to be about the leaders in this room, the leadership behaviors that you show, and some of the different activities you're doing, innovation mindset, empowering digital autonomy for your teams, creating digital citizens within your teams, and then acting on that as well. Whether it's small through to the large, I think it's important to act on it. So that can be doing your own digital immersion, going to see peers, going to see market leaders. It can be doing digital training of your team, setting up digital leadership programs, embodying incentives within what you're doing from a leadership perspective. Leadership changes. It's estimated for those organizations that have gone through basically transformation and are recognized being digital leaders, they have to change 30% of their organization from a leadership perspective that didn't make the cut. It didn't make the move. And that leads into this leadership retraining, fundamentally retraining people who are on pivotal roles as you're driving your digital transformation and your overall transformation. And fundamentally, yes, leadership engagement as well. So being a digital leader, I think, is the most impactful change we're going to see. That's what's going to change us. And of course, you know, with a healthy amount of category management, as I was putting this slide together, I was looking down those leadership behaviors, and it actually, to a large degree, reminded me of everything I've done in the past when I've done category management, when I've developed a category strategy, when I've looked at tools. You have to go in with this type of behavior, and it has to be inbuilt within the solutions that you're using as well. So thanks very much for the opportunity to talk to you today. I'm passionate about transformation, love procurement, and basically love everything you do. So let's just do more of it, faster. Yeah. Well, it's getting cheaper.